Everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, if you've been paying attention to the league lately, the earth is literally shifting underneath our feet. We just watched the Los Angeles Rams pull off an absolute blockbuster, seismic trade from Myles Garrett. And just like that, they instantly transformed themselves into overwhelming Super Bowl favorites. Super teams are quite literally being assembled right before our eyes. The arms race in the NFL has never been more intense, and honestly, the margin for error, it has absolutely vanished. And that harsh reality brings us right to the nation's capital. The Washington Commanders are staring down the barrel of the most terrifying, yet valuable ticking clock in all of professional sports. I'm talking about the rookie quarterback contract window. Look, Jaden Daniels is the future, no doubt about it. But that window to build a true championship roster around his deeply affordable contract, it is evaporating by the second. The pressure on this front office right now is just immense, and the stakes seriously could not be higher. We are talking about generational legacy versus absolute heartbreaking failure. Every single snap, every single dollar spent, and every single draft pick made over these next 12 months is going to define this franchise for the next decade. So the question we have to ask is time already running out in Washington, or are they quietly assembling the pieces for an unstoppable dynasty in the shadows? Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today's explainer is a high-stakes, do-or-die look at the Washington Commanders' 2026 ultimatum. We're going to dive straight into this because what is unfolding in Washington right now is an absolute masterclass in pressure, expectation, and the brutal, unforgiving reality of the National Football League. If you want to understand how super teams are built and how they fall apart, you need to hear this. Before we get into the heavy stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and drop a comment down below with your thoughts as we go. And hey, if you really want to support the channel and keep these deep dives coming, hit that join button and become a channel member. All right, let's get into the trenches. Because honestly, you cannot possibly understand where the Commanders are going in 2026 without taking a really hard, uncomfortable look at the absolute devastation they left behind in 2025. The numbers from last year aren't just bad, they are historically catastrophic. Just let these sink in for a second. Ranked 27th in points allowed. Dead last in total yards surrendered. That's 32nd out of 32 professional franchises. And 31st in takeaways. I mean, under the previous management, this defensive unit couldn't stop a nosebleed, let alone a modern, sophisticated NFL offense. They were entirely incapable of generating meaningful pressure off the edge, completely incapable of getting off the field on third down, and just couldn't force those massive momentum-shifting turnovers. When you're giving up the most yards in professional football week in and week out, you're putting your highly touted rookie quarterback in a desperate, playing-from-behind script every single Sunday. You are literally asking a young player to be Superman just to keep the game within 2 scores. And historically, that is a guaranteed recipe for broken confidence and wasted seasons. This deeply entrenched disaster is exactly why new defensive coordinator Daron Payne was brought into the building. He inherited a foundational mess. Sweeping structural changes to this defense are no longer some kind of off-season luxury. They are a strict, non-negotiable requirement for survival in the NFC. 5.5. I just want that number to hang in the air for a second. Because in the violent, unpredictable, totally chaotic world of the NFL trenches, 5.5 is a massive, game-changing number when you attach the right context to it. That is the exact number of sacks defensive end Dorrance Armstrong racked up in just the first 7 weeks of last season. Now, what's truly compelling here is the historical weight of that explosive production. Think about this. Those 5.5 sacks tied him with Montez Sweat in 2023 and Matthew Ioannidis in 2018 for the most by any Washington player in the first 7 games of a season since Ryan Kerrigan dropped 6.0 way back in 2017. Armstrong was experiencing a profound, one-man pass-rushing renaissance. He was a pure force of nature, almost single-handedly trying to drag that historically bad defense out of the gutter with pure violence and elite hand technique. He was on a blistering pace to completely shatter his career high of 8.5 sacks. And then mid-October hit. A brutal, agonizing, season-ending knee injury tore it all away in a fraction of a second. The momentum just stopped cold. The defense collapsed entirely without him. But that 5.5 number? It proves exactly what kind of destructive force he's capable of being when the stadium lights are on and he's fully unleashed. But here's the thing you have to know about him. A torn ACL is not the end of this story. For him, it's the beginning of a relentless, almost terrifying obsession. According to Tashan Reed on X, Armstrong hasn't just been rehabbing. He has been completely consumed by the process. We're talking about a guy who is constantly checking in with head coach Dan Quinn. He's sending him raw, grueling rehab videos from the facility before the sun even comes up. There is a desperate, burning fight inside this 8-year veteran to get back onto the field for week 1. You can literally feel it. This isn't just about recovering tissues and ligaments anymore. This is about his legacy. It's about redemption. The Commanders absolutely need his specific brand of violence. Even with the additions of edge rushers like Adefe Owe and Clavon Chason, Armstrong is that hidden gem, the emotional and physical defensive catalyst who already proved he can thrive in this exact high-pressure environment. If he comes back fully healthy, if you trust that knee, and reclaims that explosive first step off the line of scrimmage, he becomes the ultimate equalizer. He becomes the cornerstone that gives Jaden Daniels the defensive support he so desperately needs to actually contend for championships, rather than just surviving the regular season week by week. All right, let's flip the script and move to the other side of the ball, because the tension in the offensive trenches is just as high, if not higher. The entire fate of the Washington Commanders, literally the whole shebang, rests on one singular, non-negotiable objective: keeping Jaden Daniels upright. Enter 5-year veteran guard Sam Cosmi. Now, he isn't always flashy, right? He isn't always going to be the cover athlete superstar you see on Madden, but he is the anchor, and that is exactly what this franchise needs more than anything right now. The offensive line was a glaring liability in 2025. Cosmi himself was painfully limited to just 9 starts due to nagging injuries, but when he is on the field, he is a violent, highly intelligent difference maker who strictly dictates the point of attack. With terrifying question marks looming over the center position, Cosmi at right guard and Chris Paul at left guard become the absolute most critical yet wildly underappreciated players on this entire roster. Because think about it. You can have all the elite weapons in the world, you can have the most dynamic, paradigm-shifting dual-threat quarterback of his generation, but if the interior of your offensive line collapses in 1.5 seconds, the play is dead, the drive is dead. Cosmi's health, his technique, and his sheer physical dominance are the hidden keys to unlocking this franchise's ultimate offensive potential. And that brings us directly to the strategic revolution happening in Washington right now. This is a profound shift in philosophy, and you can hear it straight from the players. As Cosmi himself noted, being under center helps a lot, just not being one-dimensional. Having both can definitely help us moving forward. Now, this is a direct, calculated reference to the sweeping changes being implemented under new offensive coordinator David Blow. The Commanders are completely abandoning those predictable, gun-only, spread-thin mentalities that basically haunted them in the past. Blow is bringing back the heavy play action. He is forcing the offense to get under center. Now, you might be wondering, why does this granular, specific detail matter so deeply? Because last year's smart, physical defenses, like the Minnesota Vikings, completely exposed Washington. They were just guessing their shotgun snap counts and teeing off on the quarterback with zero hesitation. They were painfully one-dimensional. By moving under center, establishing a punishing physical run game, and brilliantly masking their passing intentions, Blow is giving Cosmi and this offensive line a legitimate fighting chance to dictate the terms of engagement. It is a brilliant, heavy scheme designed specifically for survival and absolute dominance in the notoriously brutal, cold-weather matchups of the NFC East. So you fix the scheme, you stabilize the offensive line, you pray to the football gods that your pass rush returns to its dominant form. But in today's ultra-competitive NFL, that is still not enough to win a Super Bowl. You need fireworks. You need a true game breaker. You need an offense that strikes absolute paralyzing terror into the hearts of opposing defensive coordinators before they even step off the team bus. Terry McLaurin is a phenomenal, absolutely elite talent, but in a league where the Rams just added Myles Garrett to an already stacked championship deck, Jaden Daniels requires more firepower. He needs a veteran presence, a route-running technician who can instantly read complex coverages and just get open when the original play inevitably breaks down. Which leads us to the most dramatic, high-stakes question of this entire offseason. Who is the missing piece? Who is the guy that could completely blow the ceiling off this offense and turn Washington into an unstoppable juggernaut? Boom! Target. Free agent Stephon Diggs. This is the blockbuster rumor sending absolute shockwaves through the nation's capital right now. The veteran superstar is suddenly and surprisingly available on the open market. Diggs was recently exonerated of charges stemming from an incident with his personal chef, officially clearing his name and opening his legal path back to the gridiron. Following a grueling, highly emotional run to the Super Bowl with the New England Patriots, a run that ended in absolute heartbreak against the Seattle Seahawks, as we all saw, Diggs was released. Now, ESPN has formally floated Washington as a prime, highly aggressive destination for him, alongside heavyweights like Kansas City and Las Vegas. And let's be crystal clear, this isn't just a depth signing to fill out a roster spot. This is a franchise-altering acquisition. This is the exact type of aggressive, all-in move that signals to your locker room, to your deeply starved fan base, and most importantly to your young franchise quarterback, that you are not here to slowly rebuild. You are here to conquer. And if anyone thinks he's past his prime, just look at what he did in 2025. He absolutely silenced everyone. There were so many whispers last year, right? Critics were saying he was washed up. They were saying an aging receiver coming off a severe ACL injury couldn't perform at an elite level anymore. Well, he proved every single one of them completely wrong. He led the New England Patriots in receiving yards. He became the ultimate crucial security blanket for young quarterback Drake May, constantly bailing him out on critical third downs time and time again when everything else broke down. And he was a major, undeniable factor in dragging that team all the way to the Super Bowl. He didn't just play, he produced under the brightest, most terrifying lights imaginable. Now, I want you to imagine taking that exact same veteran savvy, that exact same route-running perfection, and pairing it with the explosive, dual-threat chaos of Jaden Daniels in 2026. Diggs knows exactly how to elevate a young quarterback. He knows exactly how to manipulate defensive backs to get open in the red zone. If Washington actually lands him, their offense instantly transforms from a promising question mark into an absolute nightmare for the rest of the league. But, and there's always a but, building a super team requires massive capital. It requires cap space. It requires incredibly difficult, ruthless, deeply uncomfortable financial decisions. And no single number on this roster represents a more difficult decision than this one right here, $27.95 million. I just want you to let that massive, staggering figure wash over you for a moment. In a league strictly defined by a hard salary cap, $27,950,000 is an astronomical anchor on your books. It entirely dictates what you can and cannot do in free agency. It actively limits your flexibility to go out and sign a game changer like Stephon Diggs. It essentially forces you to bargain hunt in the late, desperate waves of free agency. And this staggering number, it belongs to one single man for the 2026 season, defensive tackle Daron Payne. This is the crushing reality of what we call the $90 million expectation. Daron Payne is by far the highest paid player on the Washington Commanders roster. Back in March of 2023, the franchise basically backed up the Brinks tuck. They handed him a massive 4-year, $90 million contract, completely laden with over $59 million in pure guarantees and a $28 million signing bonus. The team was highly, deeply invested in Payne being the immovable cornerstone of their defensive front for half a decade. He's now entering the final high-pressure year of that colossal deal. And look, when you are paid an average annual salary of $22.5 million, you aren't just expected to be a good player. You are expected to be transcendent. You are expected to wreck opposing offensive game plans entirely by yourself. The front office paid a premium for a superstar defensive tackle. But the terrifying, lingering question creeping through the halls of the facility in Washington right now is, did they actually get one? Because when we look at the numbers, this confronts us with a highly uncomfortable, deeply fascinating psychological reality. On one side, you have his 2022 contract year. It was an absolute monster showing, 11.5 sacks, 20 quarterback hits, and a dominant Pro Bowl appearance. He was an unstoppable force of nature when the bag was on the line and his financial future was at stake. But then, you look at the reality of his career average in non-contract years, a pedestrian 3.64 sacks per season. Now, yes, we all know defensive tackles do way more than just rush the passer. They eat up double teams, they anchor the point of attack, they disrupt the interior run game. We get that. But you simply do not pay a man nearly $30 million against your salary cap just to eat up blocks. You pay him to put the opposing quarterback in the dirt on third down. This stark statistical contrast forces us to ask the absolute hardest question in professional sports. Does this foundational player only step into true greatness when his legacy and his bank account are on the line?
And General Manager Adam Peters? He operates with cold, calculated ruthlessness, and honestly, that is exactly what winning franchises require. The days of Washington blindly overpaying for past production, lingering potential, or locker room nostalgia are completely over. The mandate inside that building is crystal clear. Produce 15-plus sacks or pack your bags. If Daron Payne, at 29 years old, wants to secure one final massive long-term contract to stay in the nation's capital, he cannot just be a good piece of the puzzle. He has to be historically dominant. He has to prove unequivocally that 2022 wasn't just a financial fluke. Because unless he is willing to swallow his pride and take a massive pay cut, Peters will let him walk right out the door without a second thought. 2026 is a literal, high-stakes, do-or-die season for Payne's future. Every single snap, every single pressure, every single tackle for loss is going to be evaluated under a microscopic lens. The front office is challenging him to be great. If he fails, his era in Washington ends abruptly. Put up or pack up.
And that brings us to the ultimate defining question of the 2026 season for the Washington Commanders. Will they build a dynasty or are they going to waste the window? They have the explosive, franchise-altering rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They have the hidden, violent gems returning from injury in Dorrance Armstrong and Sam Cosmi. They have the aggressive new schemes under David Blau, the thrilling rumors of superstar wideouts like Stefan Diggs, and defensive giants like Daron Payne fighting for their absolute financial lives. The puzzle pieces are scattered all over the table, but the clock is ticking louder and faster than ever before. If they finally put it together, they could rule the NFC East for a decade. If they fail, they just become another tragic cautionary tale of wasted potential in the NFL. So what do you think? I want to hear your absolute boldest predictions for the Commanders this season. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below right now. And before you go, please do not forget to subscribe to NFL Nexus, smash that like button on this explainer to feed the algorithm, and hit the join button to become a channel member to truly support what we do here. I'll see you on the next deep dive.